Children's Services Council, and we haven't really had an opportunity to celebrate it this year because we've had, 2020 goes without saying, 20 years, but in 2021, we would like to celebrate. And Cindy and I have been in discussion about how we may do that, and we've had some interesting ideas. So we're going to bring those forward in January for you. But if you have any ideas that you would like to share with us as council members of things you might like to see us celebrate, just remember we started 20 years ago as a small, brand new business, if you will, and now we are the leaders here in Broward County. Whenever there's an issue concerning children and families, we are the go-to community organizer to make their lives better. So please keep in mind and share with us any ideas you might have going forward. I also want to say it's the holiday season. We're not going to meet, as you know, in December. So I wanted to say to our council members and our staff to have a wonderful holiday season, to stay safe, have peace and quiet with your families, and remember 2021 is coming, and we're hopefully going to have our vaccines, and it'll be a much brighter 2021. So thank you to all of you for that. After this meeting, we will have our nominating committee meeting. So this is actually my last official meeting as your chair. It's been an honor and a privilege, and when we hand the gavel, I will thank you all properly. But we are looking for a new slate for 2021. We have 3 seats available. That would be chair, vice chair, and secretary. And we invite all of our council members, especially those that haven't served, to please join us either at the nominating committee meeting, or if you're not available, to join us either in person or via Zoom. Just let Amy or any one of us here know that you are interested in serving with the new slate coming up in January, and we will add you to the list for consideration at the nominating committee meeting. So that will come back to you after this meeting today in our January meeting for a vote of the entire council, and then your new slate will be established at that time. Okay. Now, at this time, I have the honor and privilege of introducing our newest member sitting with us on our council, and that is Donna Corrin. We're very excited. Donna was appointed by the school board as our representative on Tuesday this week. And Donna, I want you to know that you are joining a very prestigious group. You are about to sit with a team that is not only committed, dedicated, hardworking, but they're dynamic, and we're just so thrilled that you're going to join us in the work that we do for children and families here in Broward County. So I'd like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and say a few words.
Wonderful, thank you so much. I was very excited to have had the opportunity to be afforded this seat with my school board members. I have been on the school board since 2011, and I actually served on the Children's Services Board for many, many years, and always was looking forward to the opportunity to serve on the council. So I actually was running for office the year that the Children's Services Board was elected to commence. I was very excited. I know that I had a chance to work with Cindy for many, many years. In fact, I served an interesting role with the Children's Services Council many years ago in the representation of your office building. So commercial real estate.
Thank you for that.
Commercial real estate is my career, and public service is my passion. So I'm looking forward to being able to be involved and helpful in every way that I can. So thank you very much.
Well, I'm sorry you're not here with us in person, Donna, but we warmly welcome you, and we look forward to seeing you hopefully in person, maybe even without a mask, you never know, in January.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so Cindy, we're going to skip over the approvals, then go down to the president's report, please.
I want to add my welcome to Donna. You'll be happy to be coming to meetings every month.
Yes.
In the office you helped us create.
I can't wait.
Okay, so we have no screens up.
That's okay, we're looking at our screens here.
Okay, right. So we had the Girls Summit took place virtually on October 17th. That was a little disconcerting to hear the feedback.
Yeah, you've got a little reverb going on there.
Over 150 people attended, and we had over 57 attendees completed their evaluation, and over 80% of them said that the overall quality and content of the summit was either excellent or good. They all said that they would recommend the breakout rooms where they discussed dating violence, the Madame C.J. Walker section. Yes. I stopped getting the reverb. They turned something off. Is it better now? I want to apologize. This is a bit, it was much easier when we were all Zoom. This half and half makes it more challenging, but we will rise above it. Okay, you can hear me though. Okay. So, there were lots of presentations by great organizations, and we even managed to get the girls goodie bags, even though they were participating virtually. We will overcome any obstacle. Just give this group an opportunity and they will find a way to make it work. Also, for Lights On After School, which normally is one of our very favorite events where we gather so many of the children participating in our after-school programs together at the park with music and activities. And of course, that couldn't happen. But we did manage to have a lot of virtual events. Our providers came through as they always do. So this year's event on October 22nd focused on the ways after school has supported our community during the pandemic. They did keeping the lights on after school. It was an opportunity to connect, reflect, and support the social, emotional, and physical well-being of the children and youth nationally. And providers were asked to, in our community, providers were asked to celebrate within their individual programs. And I believe there's a video of how.
Yes, there is.
Okay, Andrew, you want to run the video?
One second, please.
Sometimes the world feels like a mess, full of drama, full of stress. And life puts a fist right in your ribs. You can hide if you choose to, and no one would even blame you. Or you can let them see how you deal with it. That even in the darkest place, His love can make you radiate. Doesn't matter how deep, how dark the night is, keep hope and keep on shining, and they'll see His light burning in your heart. And if the road gets rough, just keep your head up. Let the world see what you're made of. That His love's alive in your deepest part. Like a flame, like a burning star, you can shine right where you are. He made you to glow in the dark. That even in the darkest place, His love can make you radiate. Doesn't matter how deep, how dark the night is, keep hope, keep on shining, and they'll see His light burning in your heart. He made you to glow in the dark. Just
Lots of fun was had by all, and I don't know about you, but watching that dog kind of struggle up that ladder really seemed the perfect metaphor for 2020. Okay, the United Nations Association, as I think we mentioned last month, we were going to be recognized by the United Nations chapter as one of their 2020 UN Day honor roll organizations, which happened to coincide with the 75th anniversary of the United Nations Charter. They stated that CSC has exhibited support for one or more of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and that a record of our October 22nd, 2020 award citation has been shared with local, national, and global UN and UNA networks. And I am very grateful to Kathy. I was under the weather and she stepped in at the last minute to accept the award on our behalf, and we have a video of that to share with you. We do.
Yes, we do. Just one second.
Our next honor roll organization is Children's Service Council of Broward County. Children's Service Council of Broward County goals number 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, and 16. Mission statement is to provide the leadership, advocacy, and resources necessary to enhance children's lives and empower them to become responsible, productive adults through collaborative planning and funding of a continuum of quality care. And Kathy Donnelly, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for that build up. I appreciate it. I'm representing Cindy Arenberg-Seltzer this evening, our amazing CEO at Children's Services Council here in Broward County. And I'm most proud of our team and their ability under Cindy's leadership to have pivoted so quickly during COVID to access our families, to reach out to them and provide flexible services. Throughout the pandemic, we continue to add extra PPE into the community, extra food services, and to collaborate with all of our community partners, many of whom are on the call this evening. So I'm just very, very proud to be a part of this organization. I want to say thank you to everybody, and thank you for including us in this incredible honor. And going forward, Children's Services Council will continue to meet the needs of children and families here in Broward County who need us the most. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done. So we now have the opportunity to put that UNA logo on documents to show that we have that support, and we will do so. The next two items for me are approval, but if you would like, what I thought we could entertain any discussion now. I know the judge is listening, so if you'd like to discuss either of those items, we can do so, and then you'll be ready to vote when he gets here. So under the COVID update, I would just make you aware that we got 100,000 masks donated, disposable masks that were donated thanks to a connection that was made by Lori Salarulo at JA World. There was a businessman who was willing to make that kind of a donation. They said, how many do you need? We said, how about 100,000? And a few weeks later, they arrived. So you can see before you the pictures of the masks that were delivered, and they're being distributed as needed throughout the community.
Do we still have some, or are they all in the community now?
No, I believe we still have some, right, Andrew?
We have plenty left.
Yeah. The idea was for them to last a while, so they're being given out as needed for the programs. With respect to the learning pods, we did close most of them as you had agreed when schools opened. There were 5 schools that were not able to open because of mold issues, et cetera, and so we kept those open, and I believe now there's still one that is in operation at Oak Ridge Elementary because they're still having some challenges with the building. So we're staying in close contact with the school district to understand where we can be of most value and trying to ensure that that still happens. At this point, that's not requiring any additional money. As I explained before, we're using the money that's already in the after-school programs that we fund, in that they're just using it differently. And if it turns out that there's a need for additional, we'll get back to you. But right now, it doesn't look like that's going to be necessary. Any questions on any of that? Folks that are, usually when we have you on Zoom, I can see everybody down the side. Now I can only see a few at a time. So if you need to get my attention or the chair's attention, you'll have to speak rather than just raise your hand, because it's difficult to tell. Okay, so on the emergency funding, the COVID emergency funding, as you may recall, you had given the authority over $250,000. We set up the emergency distribution program. I didn't approve these without you because we had the meeting coming up, but we are suggesting it come out of that 250 emergency fund. You have the two items before you, which involve food. One is in the South County with the CEC, which is a longtime partner of the CSC, although they haven't been funded with any big grants. They have participated in all of our events, and they've gotten some sponsorships over the years, and they are now connecting with our out-of-school time programs and our feeding partners. And so this is a nice, exciting opportunity for a woman who has worked so hard on behalf of her community. And then the second one is a new partnership with an organization that actually came to us through Robbie Holroyd, who brought this organization to my attention. They have been doing a lot of work with the senior community, doing supplementing, working with the, what are they called now? EDIS group. The seniors, and supplementing Meals on Wheels. It's hitting other people besides where Meals on Wheels is going. They are individually packaged meals that are customizable for the dietary preferences or needs of the people that they're serving. They are absolutely capable and willing to make meal packages that are appropriate for young people and for different ethnicities. So this would be a test during the Christmas break when the schools will be closed to see how that works. It's individual meal delivery directly into the home. So it's a different model than a lot of what we've been funding up until now. And this would focus on the northeast portion of the county, which has a lot of families that have been hungry and have been overlooked and often have transportation issues to actually pick up at the feeding sites. So those are the two items there that you'll vote on later, but I'm happy to entertain any questions now.
I just want to speak to support of the CSC. That's the one, that's the tab 21. I've watched this group. This is your real grassroots work taking place. And when the COVID really hit early, this was the one group that was really distributing food somehow. And somehow they did it on almost nothing. And have been doing it for a long time without having money from other places, other than, just here and there. They can squeeze a dollar like unbelievable. They are able to get resources. They really do collaboration. They get tremendous support from the area, from all the cities around there. I think Rotary Club actually just got them a truck. So everybody tries to pitch in. It's a pretty amazing group. And this is the first time, as you mentioned, that it's the kind of group that doesn't have, it's kind of a loose organization. And sometimes it's hard for those groups because they don't have the auditors, they don't have the financial, they don't have all the tools that sometimes make it easier to ask for grants. And somehow they were able to, I guess, pull this together. I think what we want to do is keep a good eye on this. And if they, I think this is a month-by-month distribution through September to try to make sure, primarily those seniors that are needing food brought to them. And I want to keep an eye on it. If they need more money, I know they're limited. I think this is 61. They could go up to 80. I'm going to keep an eye on that, and I think we should. If they need help, this is a good group, worthy of our support. So I'm happy to support this one.
We will definitely be, I'm sorry, can I just respond to Beam? We'll definitely be keeping a close eye on this. Andrew is working very closely with all of the organizations involved.
Good.
I do want to say our money will not be going to seniors, obviously, it'll be going to families.
Right.
But it is a big partnership with United Way and the Joy in Childhood Foundation, Walmart Foundation, Wawa. So it's going to be a nice collaboration, and Nadine has certainly worked hard to be worthy of this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Tom.
Pretty amazing.
Thank you, they do great work. These are just clarifications. I'm sure they have guidelines.
Can you unmute? I don't think they can hear you on. Up at the top. There you go.
Now you can hear me, huh?
Yeah.
Thanks. Just for clarification, more so for the public, but also mine, I guess. I'm sure they have requirements as to where the money is spent to make sure it stays in Broward County and it stays towards children. We could just briefly explain what that is so the public understands it's staying here since it is taxpayer dollars.
Are you talking about Deliver Lean or CEC? Or both?
Both.
Okay. CEC is a Hollywood-based organization that will only be serving in the Hollywood, Hallandale area. So it is local and it will locally serve. Deliver Lean, I'm not sure where their headquarters is, but all of the food that will be delivered is going into the northeast part of the county. So it's absolutely only Broward that will be served, and it will be for families with children. So that we're 100% sure of, and we will be tracking it along the way. But we're connecting one of the big controls is we're connecting both feeding programs with our funded agencies so that we know the families that are actually being selected for the feeding. So in Northeast, we're talking to our partners at Crockett and Community-Based Connections and Community Reconstruction and Housing Corporation, so that these are relationships that have already built and they can select families who they know have challenges with transportation or other issues that are going on, and therefore this would be beneficial to them.
Thank you.
Kathy, you need to unmute. Just a reminder for those in the building, top right corner, you have to unmute in order for the people outside to hear you. Top right, when you tap, you should see mute, unmute. No, you're not. Did you unmute? So tap unmute.
Okay.
There you go. Perfect.
I'm back, okay. So I was saying I am thrilled to see the difference. There's just two really different groups doing the same work in a different way. So it'll be really interesting to follow both and see who has more success. So, and I'm glad we're supporting the smaller grassroots because they're really getting to the people that maybe we weren't touching in other areas. So it'll be interesting to watch this.
Madam Chair.
Please.
So Cindy, you kind of answered this already. I just want to verify and make sure. We've been receiving actually a lot of calls lately in the Hollywood Miramar area, so the south end of Broward County, for food assistance and financial assistance. So one, I am so glad that this is happening in that area because right now they're really needing it. And so huge support for that. My question is, I know that you said they're going to provide for the south end, and I know this particular provider typically works with the city of Hollywood. Are they going to take care of all south end? So Miramar, Hollandale, do we know? Or are they sticking to very specific?
Well, keep in mind, it's still only 200 families being served each
Right.
month, so they're clearly not covering the entire need in South County. But again, what we were looking for with them is to connect with our funded providers in that area to get guidance as to where they can be most impactful. So I can't tell you exactly if there are going to be any families in Miramar or if they're all going to be in Hollywood, Hallandale, but you know, we'll try and stretch it as far as it will go.
But they're able to, I guess is my question. They're able to provide for all South End, right? Through those funded providers.
We did not put restrictions on, we didn't put a geographic parameter around them. So I think they'll serve as many as they can, wherever they can. We also still have the relationships with Mobile School Pantry and the Harvest Drive, and they have been very amenable to finding ways to get into neighborhoods where they can. And we'll see what happens with Deliver Lean. If this is successful, that also has the ability to go anywhere. So
Sure.
we'll keep an eye on it, and if you find that there's a big hole, it's always good to let us know, because Andrew and the South Florida Hunger Coalition have a way of getting into niches that is a little different than the giant food supply.
And Dawn, just to that, I'm sure you probably already know this, but every city has a certain amount of CARES Act money right now that's still available. And it's for both food, it's for rental assistance, for numerous things. Light bill stuff, all that kind of stuff. So they're all still, my understanding is most of them still have money left. So if there's a way of directing them toward that, that's a good idea.
Yeah, we are doing that now. 'Cause
Okay.
We don't want to see these families coming into care necessarily. Thank you.
Okay, Cindy.
Okay, so if there's no other questions on that, you'll be able to vote on that when the judge gets here. The last thing on this part of the agenda for me is the December office schedule. There was a tradition we started back in 2008 when the economic downturn, we tried to give staff a little break at that time because of the economy. We gave them 4 extra days off when we closed the office. Since it was so popular that we have continued to close the office during that time, but now they use their vacation time for that. So it's no economic cost to us, and it's a nice opportunity for the staff to recharge. So we will be closed from the 25th of December till actually January 2nd will be the first day back, to the extent that we are back in this crazy world. But I just wanted to let you know, and God knows if there was ever a year where we needed a break, this would be it. So, Madam Chair, that's it for me at this time. So I'll be back to you later.
Okay, perfect. So we still don't have the judge, so what are you suggesting?
Oh, so move on to the Chief Program Officer.
Oh, we can do
We
their
can just-
reports?
We'll just run through
Okay.
it all, explain the items as I just did, handle any questions.
Okay,
And
and then
be
we'll
ready
vote
to
at the end. Okay, perfect. So then we're moving to the Chief Program Officer's Report under tab 23. Maria, please.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good morning. Just before I get to my issue paper, I just wanted to say how excited I am to be working with Miss Donna Korn. I have not worked with her before. Ms. Korn, I've heard such wonderful things about you. Really looking forward to partnering with you, myself and the Program Services Department. So, the issue paper that you have in front of you is for our respite RFP. And this is an RFP that is anticipated to be released in February. It has the list of raters that we are bringing forward, and the council, of course, can add raters to the list. We always welcome council members to serve as raters. So I'm presenting the rater list that's on the back of the issue paper for your approval, and also to inquire if there's anyone on the council who would like to serve as a rater.
Anybody wish to serve on that particular rating committee? Okay, not at this time, Maria.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just need approval. I guess we can't do that now. So
Yeah, we're going to come back to you for approval.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Madam
under
Chair,
Yes.
I'm so sorry. I skipped two things under the goo. I lost my mind for a moment. If I could go back.
Back to the goo we go.
I am so sorry, but these really can't go, at least one of them cannot go unrecognized. We once again won the award for excellence in financial reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association. We have an unbroken streak every year, and we are so proud of Monty and Kathleen and the team for their amazing work. And although we haven't gotten it yet, I'm quite confident that our PEFR, the new document that Kathleen led, will also receive such an award, but I couldn't let this go by. I don't know how I skipped over it in my desire to talk about COVID.
Good work, Monty and Maureen and team. Excellent. We were clapping for you in case you couldn't hear us.
And then we're going to discuss this a little bit more later during your roundtable about racial equity and the work that's been done. And I just wanted to mention that Broward County Commission on their meeting on November 10th proposed a countywide task force on race equity. And I'm a little concerned that it's premature as the work is building. It may not be time yet for a big countywide task force with 35 members, but it looks like the public hearing has been scheduled and it will likely pass. And the good news is there was recognition, thank you, Commissioner Furr, as well as Commissioner Rich, and Mayor Holness acknowledged the work that the Children's Services Council has been doing in this arena and the partnership. So I'm hopeful that it will follow the model. And your roundtable today, I think you're going to be very excited about to see how the work is building, and why I might say that this was a little premature, because I think it's leading up to that, and we'll see how it all interacts later.
Beam, go ahead.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think it warrants some monitoring and see how it goes. If it's, you know, I thought it might be a little premature myself too, but it is probably going to pass, is my guess. I think we tried to kind of massage it ahead of time as best we could to make sure that who was on the board was the right balance. But that's a big board. It's a big board, and I think that what we need to be doing is just keep our eyes on it. If it's not working, pull it back. And I don't have any problem, you know, suggesting that. And I think we just kind of we just see how it's working. That's all.
I want to say I admire them for, you know, wanting to do it, and they're not alone. You know, my phone was ringing off the hook for weeks, you know, because CSC is so well regarded with the work that we've done in this area. And my personal advice to people was, this has been a problem for 400 years and, you know, more, and we're not going to solve it today. But if you can get your business, because it's normally business people calling me, to do the groundwater training. I just did it via Zoom, 2-3 hours. It was excellent. That would be a really great step. Then, if we can get those people to do the 2.5-hour training, or the 2.5-day training, that would be really good, because then they'd have the depth. And then if they would sit on a task force for racial equity, we could really make some progress in this area. But that's just my advice, and everyone has to do what they feel works for them, but I think that's progress.
Yeah, and I think what, so far from the CSC's perspective, and where I think they've been most effective, has been more in the social elements, social world, I guess. The county's looking at trying to deal with the economic side of it, and that's laudable. That's a good point. If we're ready for that, we'll find out. It's worth trying, and that's whether transfer is that easy. I don't know. It's a whole different ballgame, and we're going to find that out. But that's what you're seeing. You're seeing the trying to transfer those efforts from the social issue aspect into the business economic side, where there is huge need for it, and honestly, some of where it's most needed. So it's a good effort, but there's landmines all over the place, and you got to make sure you're dodging those. And I think, as Cindy mentions, make sure everybody's speaking the same language when you're doing this, and we'll see where we go. But the fact that this county is doing this on multiple levels is something we can all be proud of.
Kathy, one thing to be sure of is when you're going to speak, just like you would have pressed your mic, make sure you unmute, because otherwise people can't hear you in the world. And I'll just say your advice to the business people who are calling you was spot on, and you'll see during the roundtable exactly that kind of path and different entry points that are being mapped out that can be shared with both business people, social service agencies. And the hope is that anybody that gets appointed to the task force will go through that kind of a process. So as Dean just said, we're all speaking the same language and starting from the same level of analysis. While there can be different approaches and different answers to the questions, there still has to be some common understanding, or people will just talk across each other.
Absolutely. Anybody else want to speak to that? Okay.
So then we can go back to the agenda to the Chief Innovation Officer.
And, okay, Sue, that's you under tab 24.
Okay, good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning. We can hear you.
Awesome. Well, before I share the item with you all, I'd like to welcome Donna Korn as our new council member. On behalf of the Research and Planning Department, we're really excited to be working with you going forward. So welcome.
Thank you, Sue.
Absolutely. And so the item that I have for you is as a result of the Community Participatory Action Research project that we did with the Florida Institute for Child Welfare last year, which successfully resulted in the youth system organizing work. They have asked us to join their statewide affiliate as a practitioner organization who sort of brings on the ground perspectives and practitioner perspectives to their statewide network. So it's really actually an honor and an exciting opportunity for the council to be a member of this affiliate group and to really share our prevention lens as well as our equity lens and our connected to the community lens. So I'll take any questions or comments at this time.
That's a lot of lenses, Sue.
I've been wearing glasses a long time. I got a lot of lenses.
Awesome. Any questions for Sue? Okay, so thank you, Sue. We'll come back to you for approval with a motion once the judge is here.
Great, thank you.
Takes us to tab 25 for Sandra. Sandra, your Chief Communication Officer's report, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Before I start, I just would like to wish all of you a happy Thanksgiving and holiday season, and a special shout out to our new school board member, Donna Korn. We are so looking forward to working with you. Welcome to the CSC, to this crazy bunch. Okay. All right, so the item behind tab 25 and 26, both of them actually deal or related with the Broward Partners for Racial Equity. The first one concerns approval of ratas for the Racial Equity Training and Support Cadre. We have led this work for 5 years with the county in the community, and we need more trainers and we need more local trainers. And so the partnership has asked us to pull together a cadre of trainers which will be vetted by community members. You would see that list of community members behind the tab. And when we have quorum, we'll then approve the ratas unless you, well, if you have any questions, please ask them now.
Anybody have any questions for Sandra? Sandra, I'd like to join the cadre, please, for the rating committee.
Oh, excellent. We would love to have you.
Thank you.
So Kathy, and then the item behind tab 26 is again related to that partnership. It's to accept the Department of Health revenue and expenditures for 2-day racial equity workshops for their staff. I believe it's, yeah, the amount is $41,196. Again, if there are any questions.
I just wanted to add, Sandra, I was really glad to read that we were doing all of this and training trainers, because I was getting concerned, just not even with my own phone ringing so much, but for your team, you know, we're all of a sudden turning into the go-to place for this type of work, which we need to share the love. So I'm really glad that we're doing this. And I think this is very, very important. So timing is perfect.
Thank you. You have an awesome training team. I never miss an opportunity to give them a special shout out. They are incredible staff members.
They are, and hopefully we'll be able to train others so that they can do that great work as well.
Yes. Behind tab 27, so Cindy can tell me how long to talk, but I can go on forever. But we had a virtual read for the record, which was quite something else. And it turned out to be even better than I had anticipated. Volunteers read to students virtually. Hands on Broward successfully recruited 308 volunteers. At the beginning of all of this, we were hopeful that we would get 100, but we got 308. And then through the schools, 400 plus other volunteers signed up directly with the schools. 4 cities created story walks in their parks. I belong to the Tamarack Education Stakeholders Committee, and on Tuesday they were talking about, we are going to do story walks throughout the year. This Read for the Record thing really showed that it could work, and in spite of the rain of last week, they had 100 people turn up. So Davie, Plantation, Tamarack, and Parkland did story walks. We had videotape read-alouds. So we did have our social media storm, as it were, and up on your screen, you would see some page captures from the day itself. From 8:30 to around 11:30, we had live readings, or recorded readings rather, from the United Way, from Miss Penny, BSO Fire Rescue, BSO deputies, Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, Ted Deutsch, and CSC, and staff members of the CEO and staff members of the Hosanna for Youth, and the Broward Reads co-chairs also did a read aloud. That was, I have to say that was pretty cool. You know, so that even if you were virtual at home, you were not connected to a school, you're doing home schooling, you could have participated via our social media outlets. And thank God for election season. It seemed that every elected official read or posted on their page that they were reading at a school. So we had we had a very successful Broward Read for the Record this year. The books were not given out on the day itself. The school board will wait until hopefully January or February when all the children are back in school, all the students, and we'll do that then. So that's the end of my report.
Sandra, excellent, excellent job. That was really challenging, out of the box thinking to make that happen. And I have to tell you that somebody told me that they saw the book on social media and went to buy it for their children. So I think that's just another great way that we've reached maybe more people than we would have because we've chosen this format. And the story walk, something I'd never even heard of before, and it appears to be popular. I know some of the teachers are taking kids out to do a story walk. What a great way here in Florida when we have good weather to engage the kids and get them moving as well. So loved it. Great job.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so let's see. Monty, you're up. Chief Operating Officer's report under tab 28, 29, 30, and 31. Better?
Okay, yes, yes, much better. Good morning, everyone. And
I don't have my phone.
I want to say, I don't know if Donna's still on, but Donna, I'm so excited that you're a part of our, I'm so excited that you're part of our council. I was just so excited when Cindy gave me the news, and I can't wait for you to see our building that you were such a major part of. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Monty.
So excited. And we have lots to catch up on, like 20 years, 10 years, I guess. So my first item, I do owe you all an apology. I hate to do this, but I inadvertently left off some of the our old equipment that needed to be written off the books, and I wanted to have a nice clean 20 year end with the capital assets. So I am bringing forth an additional list of, it's the old computers in the old computer lab. They were depreciated and hadn't even been used for quite some time. So those were, I'm sorry to say, inadvertently left off the list. So that's what this is. There was one other piece of equipment that had to do with the communication systems that's no longer compatible. So while that wasn't completely depreciated, that we really have no use for it. And we hope to be able to donate with some useful life that the Green Owl will be able to find a good home for that.
I just want to clarify, they weren't left off this list. She brought the disposal of assets last month, and these were left off of that list. Everything she wants to depreciate is listed in this issue paper.
Right, right, it combined with the two. So thank you, Cindy. Sorry if I misspoke. The next item is our interim financial statements. So this is what will become the basis of our CAFR. We wrote a very long cover letter, much longer than usual, kind of highlighting the financial events of this crazy year. Started normal, ended crazy. I know that it did result in a large fund balance that gives us some flexibility as we move forward in the next few years. So that's probably a good thing. I know we remain very judicious in how we manage our finances, and so I think that actually that might be a good thing. I can go through it line by line, but I know probably all of you have read it. Are there any questions on these financial statements?
Anybody with questions for Monty? No, Monty, you've done a super job. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And the next item kind of dovetails with the financial statements. It's the budget carry forwards. If you remember during trim, you already approved about 5 million and like just the general fund balance to carry over. And then there was some items that were identified at the May budget retreat for trauma. This list are more specific items that were POs that need to carry forward, contracts that span fiscal years, contracts that left a lot of underutilized dollars that we are able to actually absorb in the next fiscal year. And then we are proposing additional unallocated that I think Cindy's going to talk about soon. And so we are looking at an additional 5.2 million in budget carry forwards in fiscal year 21. Are there any questions on this list?
Anybody?
You know, as accountants, we like our little buckets, and so we put everything in our little buckets, and so I don't want it to get confusing from the financial statements to the carry forwards to the 21 budget.
I think you did a good job. It was clear. Anybody? Okay. Oh, Cindy, go ahead.
So as Monty alluded to or specified, we had indicated taking an additional $1.5 million and putting it into unallocated. Of course, any money you have in your fund balance, you can always access during the year. You have the ability to take it out of fund balance at any point. It's still your money. But being very accountant focused, we like to move it into the budget to sort of indicate this is money available this year, and that's kind of in our savings account. Try to stay out of the savings account. We, as we made that suggestion, we know there are going to be a lot of new demands on CSC in the coming year. It's difficult to see what they all will be, but we're feeling very confident that we need to use this in the community when we know the needs are so high. We're constantly thinking, and as you know, as you said earlier, Kathy, we're in the community, even if only virtually, looking at where the needs are and talking to our partners about where gaps come up. And in this case, a big gap looks to be something that you've been talking about for a couple of years, and which we had dipped our toe in the water of, which has to do with homeless families. During this time, we're hearing more and more about homeless families that have been homeless, but also we can see the train coming down the track as the eviction moratorium is pending, and people who thought, oh, I don't have to pay my rent, I won't get evicted. When the time comes that I have to start paying again, they're not going to ask me for those back months, are going to have a very serious awakening when they realize that they may be behind 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Now, obviously, the county is using their CARES Act dollars and the cities are using their CARES Act dollars to help fill that breach. But there's still a fear that there are going to be families that are going to be displaced, either because of that or other pressures, new pressures, even if they get help from the county on old, from the past, what's happening in the future. And the newly homeless. We have been reluctant to get involved with the chronic homeless. It's a level of expertise that we don't have here to even manage the contracts. And we always try to have that expertise so that we can be really useful to those that we fund. But it appears that there is a role for us to play, that several of our partners have asked for us to play, either in that preventing homelessness or rehousing, rapidly rehousing those families that are newly homeless. And our current thinking, so we've had conversations with the United Way, who've asked us to partner on that population. They have a lot of experience with rapid rehousing of veterans, and they've been doing a lot in that case management world. We've been talking to the county, and they're going to be doing an RFP very soon for some services in this arena as well, in rapidly rehousing. They also have a lot more experience with the chronically homeless. So it appears like we may be able to do some sort of continuum here. And we could use our, again, capitalizing on we only worry about families, using the programs that are working with families now, either through our family strengthening programs or our youth programs where they have case management with the families, their intergenerational approaches. We have some of that going on. Our maternal depression programs. So we would know the families we're talking about. We would understand what their condition is and what it would take to keep them stable and not become one of those homeless families. We know the repercussions of that on education, on child welfare. Those are the families that, truly in our world of prevention, we would be preventing child welfare involvement, hopefully supporting their educational success. Also, of course, financial trauma and being on, I know it was only one of many factors, but we do know that one of the things that Bryce Gowdy, when he committed suicide last year, one of the factors was the homelessness of the family and the pressure that that put on them. So I don't have a specific proposal to put before you today to vote on, but what I was hoping to hear was some sort of consensus from the group about whether this is an avenue you feel comfortable with us pursuing or whether you want to put the brakes on it. Homelessness and housing has been something we really have stayed primarily out of over the years, mostly because at the beginning we made a division with the county. But as we pointed out at the beginning, it's 20 years since then, and a lot has changed, and COVID makes this a whole new world. The one last thing I'll say before taking questions is you have to be careful when you use fund balance or carry forward, whatever you want to call it. It's not ongoing funding. It's one-time dollars. So investing a lot of one-time dollars in something that will require you to maintain it over the long haul can be problematic unless property values go up enough to absorb it. We usually keep that to that $3.5, $4 million we feel pretty comfortable normally we can maintain. What we're looking at here, with this kind of commitment that would likely be to housing specifically, not building staffing up, would be something that we could easily do for 2 or 3 years because, given the fund balance explanation that you saw, we could keep that up with one-time dollars. And if it stopped, we would finish up whatever housing we were doing with those families. You're not talking about laying off staff. You're not talking about displacing people. It's a reasonable way to do it without a big without a big cliff at the end, which was always Robin's big justifiable fear that she would bring up every time we talked about using fund balance. So if you would like to have some discussion that would help guide us as we move forward or not.
Okay, so Tom, go ahead.
Absolutely agree with you. I think we're going into an area here where we've not gone before, but I see the need for it. The only thing, when we come up with this plan, what I'd like to see if we can is make sure we build in a sunset so that it's not another program we take on for perpetuity where we get locked into that, but maybe a plan where we can sunset it or something.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, David.
So at the end of the fund balance or, the time in supporting these families with this housing, has there been any conversation around what happens at the end of that 2 or 3 year period? So while there's some immediate relief for them, just is there any strategic conversations or potential conversations, just kind of a long-term approach and just kind of helping them, whether it's some additional subsidies or something else along those lines?
So the way this, couple of answers to that. Absolutely, yes. It's not the idea of here's rent and good luck, we'll see you in a couple of years. Part of the reason for starting with those that are engaged with our other programs is because they would already have case management rolled in, and part of that would be financial literacy and understanding what the circumstances are around the family, whether it be connecting them with workforce opportunities, career advancement, counseling around the fiscal cliffs. We also have the amendment that just passed for the minimum wage. Hopefully that will help some of the families. The county is very heavily engaged now in affordable housing. So there's some hope that some of the housing circumstances will change a little bit, and that people's and we will work with the families for their financial condition to maintain. The other piece, the other part of the answer is what we've learned from those who have been working with the chronically homeless. Part of the 2-year idea, initially when we were talking about it, had to do with what they found is it takes 2 years of support with the families or the veterans or the chronically homeless to stabilize them and to have the strong wraparound services that get them to a place where they're able to maintain. Since our thought is not to do the chronically homeless, but rather the more newly homeless, we're hoping it won't take that 2-year time frame with one family, but that's still in the back of our minds in terms of the planning. So we would not ever, we have never in our history just been like, here, good luck, let us know how that turns out. If anything, we're a little too involved. So I hope that answers your question.
David, I also want to speak to that I believe that a lot of these newly homeless families that we are now starting to see, there are Alice families. So Alice families were the family, single mom, I was working and barely making it to the end of the month, and now I'm homeless with my kids. So these are very able people. They're not chronically homeless. They don't have all the other pieces perhaps attached to their issue, mental health, etc. So these should be people we are able to save. Having said that, we know that if we don't have the wraparound for them, then they can fall into chronic homelessness as well. What I feel very hopeful about here in Broward County, we have experience in this. We saw what we did at the encampment, and I spoke to Kathleen earlier in the month. She said I think my numbers could be wrong, but if we house 90 people, 88 of them are still housed. You know, they're still tracking those people. I know there are new people down there now, but that's different. So the people that put their hand up and said, I want to be helped, we were able to wrap our arms around them and help them, and they're still doing well. Not 100%, but that's pretty good statistics. So I believe our Alice families are the perfect opportunity to save them from becoming homeless families in the future. Beam?
All good points. And to David's point, there's a lot of wraparound services. As a case manager, it goes with every rapid rehousing. Well, we've had, the biggest problem has been not necessarily the money part, but finding the housing stock. If there was a way of getting, and I think this is where we might be able to come in. We need to get somebody, and I know that we now have a realtor on board, Donna, that, you know, I have made proffers out to the real estate community, because that's the property managers and realtors are the ones who know what's rentable. And that is our biggest issue. Like, for we cannot get enough housing stock. We actually have money to help on the rapid rehousing. We don't have property. We don't have places. We don't have the places to rent. And especially if these are families that are, like you said, Alice families just barely hanging on, working, but working at minimum wage, which doesn't pay enough, and we know that. You know, if we can kind of find that, here's a niche where we might be able to help them. because the county's got a couple people hired to do this, but I don't think they're not finding enough. That's the reality of it. The other part that I think there's a need for with these families is the after-school programs for the kids. There have been, Young at Art was doing a lot of programs after, but Young at Art is not doing it. So there's a hole there. That was being, they were hiring teachers, doing all that. That's not there anymore. And at least not until they reassemble or reconfigure wherever they're going to be. Those are the two places where I see the real need. I don't think it's for us to start to get into financing some of it. I'm not sure. I think the county's got quite a bit of money there. I'm not seeing, at least I haven't heard, and I could be wrong on this. I probably need to go check. But like I said, the main issue is finding housing stock that we can put people into. So if there's a way of getting there, it's been our problem for a couple of years. We have not been able to, there's a lot of empty houses out there. We haven't been able to get property owners to be willing to rent to those that need it.
Yeah, and if we're right on this new demographic, the Alice families, and we can promote that and it holds true, I think we'll have more success, because there was some issues, originally when we started housing people. So, but I think we are well aware that is a huge problem in the community, but we do need people to step up. So maybe we can identify and maybe have a conversation. Maybe that can be part of the package with the United Way to really work that through.
We're definitely not going to go into this alone or us just try and figure it out. There are clearly people who've been in this game way longer. And so it's really understanding from them the lay of the land, which is the work that Maria's been doing now, and then finding out where we can be most beneficial. One way that we were looking at approaching it that was keeping people in the houses that they have, which doesn't get new people off the street, but it does, preventing more of them from winding up there would certainly be a benefit. So that helps a little bit, at least from our role in having the housing stack, not having to address the housing stock shortage.
Yeah, and that'll be a game changer. That will make a big difference for sure.
So it sounds like, if I'm reading at least those in the room correctly, and those on through Zoom can still get in.
Yes, if anybody
sounds like you'd like us to pursue this.
I think if anyone is Zooming would like to speak, please jump in now. But I know, for example, I was on a call a couple weeks ago, 5,000 children identified in Broward schools as couch surfing or homeless. We have a problem. And I think as Children's Services Council of Broward, we at least have to make this first step into assisting where we can. Anybody else like to speak before we give Cindy permission to go ahead and take the next steps? Donna? Donna, go ahead, Donna.
You have to unmute.
Yeah, sorry. So I supported, obviously I'm coming in a little bit late in terms of the conversations that you all have been having, but we're clearly in a very different time and we're having to approach things in a different way. So I appreciate the creativity in coming up with this approach. And so with my colleagues now on the council, I would be happy to support it.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, anybody else? Okay, Cindy, I think we're good on that. Thank you.
Thank you. So if you have any questions on the annual purchases, that's Monty's last item. And that,
I just need to say one quick thing. There was a Scrivener's error in the purchases. We inadvertently said that we were going to pay the Broward County School Board for the debate sponsorship, and we will not be paying them. We are working on who to pay. I think it's the Broward Education Foundation is who we pay, but just with that one change.
We'll allow that one minor error there.
And then the other big thing to note on these purchases are all the CRA payments that are due. And we
Okay.
got the discount already from Hollywood. Thank you. Sorry, Cindy.
Thank
No,
you,
that's all right.
Monty. So Cindy, we have the judge with us now. Can we go ahead and approve those tabs or ask for a
can.
motion? Okay, well,
You
why don't I
can.
start with that? Or are we going to take them all? Can we take?
I think since you already had the discussion, if you would like, I think you can get one motion on item 3C and D, which is the minutes. Oh, you didn't discuss me, so I don't know if you want to go back to that.
I'm gonna go ahead and do all the items and we'll do that. That makes sense?
Okay, that's an approval item. You want to hold off on that one?
We can do them all. We can do them all. Okay.
Let's do them all together.
And Cindy, just in full disclosure, I was able to hear everything this morning with the exception of about 5 minutes. So I heard everything.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
So how about, since you didn't discuss,
That's 5 minutes when we were talking about you.
Okay.
since you didn't discuss item 3D, I'll leave that out of the list for the motion. But if anybody would like, they could move items 3C, 4, little I, and little 2I, item 5 and 6, Roman numeral 5, Roman numeral 6, Roman numeral 7A and 7B, Roman numeral 8, items A, B, C, and D. All of those were discussed already, Madam Chair, and if someone would like to move those as a...
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Cindy, if that's okay, it's Jeff. Can we,
Go ahead, Jeff.
sorry, can we remove item 4B2A? I need to abstain on that one. I think that's a firm client. Deliver lien.
The motion is 3C, 4, little B, little I, no, we didn't do D because we had no discussion yet. 4, B, little I, 5, 6, 7A,
Okay, first of all, motion, we didn't get discussion. I need to ask Angie. Angie, any public comments?
No public comment.
Thank you, Angie. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? There are no abstentions. Motions carry. Thank you. Very efficient.
So then you'll want to do item 4, B, little I, which is deliver lien. Sorry, did I say, yes.
Yes.
Little 2I. 2I. 2I.
Okay, so can we have a motion to approve, please? We had a second? Any further discussion? Angie, any public comments?
No public comment.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? There are no abstentions. Oh, one abstention for Jeffrey.
Ask for an extension. Let Jeffrey put it on the record.
Okay. I'd like to ask, any abstentions?
Yes, I abstain on that item. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Chair, then,
Yes.
would like to discuss.
Under tab 20, we have a request for approval. Sorry?
The wanted to go back to your item.
Tab 20?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I thought agenda
Yeah,
item.
yeah, sorry. Under tab 20, we're discussing approval of Cindy's contract for 2021, the COLA increase and contract terms for our president and CEO. I would like to state that Cindy, for those of you who are new, especially Donna, but many others that are new, about 4 years ago, we hired a company, a professional company, to take a look at all the salaries for the Children's Services Council. At that time, we were well under market. Our teams were not paid at market value. So we have corrected that. Cindy was compensated to a mid-term level as of last year. And last year in our contract discussion with Cindy, we discussed that this year she would receive a $15,000 increase, if you will. And that was to cover the downfall that she still has compared to the market value of a CEO at this level in Broward County today. Cindy did not ask for that in this contract negotiation this year, even though she had outstanding reviews. She has chosen, with her strong leadership, to set an example in the community. These are uncertain times. Our economy is unstable, if you will, and she wanted to put it out there that she would not be asking for any increase at this time. I want to say, Cindy, to you, that's very strong leadership. We appreciate you taking that stand. I think other people in the community will look to you and also make a similar decision. It is my personal hope that this time next year, we will be in a much better world, if you will, COVID-free, and our economy back on track, and I'd like to see Cindy get paid appropriately. I also have a concern personally for the long-term succession plan here at CSC, if you will, and having just gone through a major search for a CEO here in Broward County in a nonprofit, I can tell you that our salaries need to be, how do you say that, competitive to attract the caliber of person that Cindy is. Harvard educated, 20 years in the community, leader on all levels. To attract this kind of person in the future, if Cindy ever decides to retire, we need to be competitive. So I always want to keep that in mind for our next year's discussion. Anybody else like to add anything on Cindy's behalf? Dean.
I was just going to make a motion to approve. Well deserved. Obviously, the comments stunk on there. But
Second.
the only thing that scares me on those comments is all of a sudden, if anybody else is looking at all those, you would be, any other company would be trying to poach you in a heartbeat. I know. I wouldn't surprise me a bit.
Exactly.
We're very lucky to have you leading this organization. You've done a fantastic job and continue to. And I would love to make the motion on this.
Thank you, Beam. So motion, and we got a second from Tom. Angie, any public comments?
No public comment.
Thank you, Angie, and no further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? We have no abstentions, motion carries. Okay, Cindy would like to speak. Go ahead, Cindy.
I just want to thank you all. Reading your evaluations and your comments, I was very moved, and I hope to continue to live up to your confidence in me. It has been the professional pleasure of my life to grow this organization from, and there shall be, and I can't believe it's 20 years. It's just been an amazing privilege. And yes, the coaching tries to happen, but I can't imagine any place that I would rather be than here. And I just really felt strongly, and Kathy did try to talk me out of this many times, that this year it's just not a good look for the council to give me that kind of raise when people are struggling, and as we said, worried about whether they're going to be able to maintain their house. So I would much rather make sure that that money is going into the community. God willing, next year, circumstances will be different, and then I will ask to be appropriately compensated.
Well, again, Cindy, thank you. We appreciate that strong leadership, and you are a beacon in the community, and I know other people will look at your lead and take similar action. So thank you for that. Okay, that takes us to, are we going to go back now to agency capacity building report? David.
You need to unmute.
Good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Awesome.
Perfect.
All right. So I have the pleasure of giving you all some updates. So the last quarterly meeting was held on November 5th, and it was a really, really good session. And it featured a community resource based on Broward's Children's Strategic Plan. And the information presented to us was done by Dr. Keisha Gray, very own Senior Strategy Manager here at the Children's Service Council of Broward County. I mean, did a phenomenal job, great content, great information. The narrative and the information easily digestible for everyone on the call to understand the impact of that report and the information around it. She discussed the 5 pillars of the strategic plan and shared some examples of the outcomes achieved through the various committees, and just kind of talked about how this is a continuing ongoing work, but phenomenal job in laying that out. Additionally, there was a panel discussion, and it featured and discussed leadership development. And so some of the panelists included folks, Julie Rodler, principal of the Rodler Group, Kristen Mackey, CEO of KMAC, Dr. Randazzo, the Executive Director for the Children's Diagnostic Treatment Center, Courtney Biscardi, who's with the Urban League of Broward County, Dion Smith, Director of Program Services, Children's Service Council of Broward County. And I will tell you that that conversation was so rich in content and gave great diverse perspectives to all who were on the call. And I think that they shared some really great experiences that they've had in their leadership roles, and then also kind of going through the leadership training as a result of CSC, right? We're learning to lead and frequency matters. They gave very pointed, very transparent, and they talked about things that work well for them and some of the challenges that they have and how that can be transferable to others in the community. There are some upcoming training opportunities. The Racial Equity 2-day workshop is coming up. How to provide telehealth services will be taking place. And then also there'll be some training around results-based accountability. You know, and I do want to just take this opportunity to say that being one of the newer members to the council, this has been eye-opening. It has been a lot of great work. And so Cindy's leadership permeates throughout. And so Sandra, Dama, Roxanne, the work that they are doing, particularly with capacity building, I mean, it is unmatched. And I will tell you that Jeff and I are constantly saying, how is it possible that you all are doing this level and quality of work at the staffing and capacity that you do? And so, you know, as Kathy mentioned, right, that the need for trainers and these different things that are happening, capacity building is huge. And I think it is a great leveraging tool here with the council to be able to far reach and to touch a lot of different entities and folks who may not have that ability or resource at their disposal. And so I am here championing and saying that I know that the work is great here, but I am championing for some additional resources and support over to capacity building. They are phenomenal, a pleasure to work with, provide great context to Jeff and myself. And I am looking forward to continuing to work with this committee and to continue to just see what's pushed out for 2021.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Jeffrey, do you want to add anything?
What he said. Thank you.
He did say it well, didn't he? You're a smart man, Jeffrey. He said it well. I want to say thank you both to David and Jeffrey. You guys have done a stupendous job on jumping in and getting so involved. I want you to know we're no longer going to call you the newbies. It's all on Donna now. So she's the only newbie. You guys are old timers for sure. Thank you so much for that report. Okay, Maria, our Funders Forum report, please.
So in your packet are the Funders Forum minutes for October. They're the draft minutes. The Funders Forum Committee has not approved them yet. So in October, we did an update to the Learning Pod. And then we spent the vast majority of the meeting talking about racial equity and what each of the partners is doing around racial equity. So there's a summary of that in the minutes. And our next meeting is in December.
Is Maria on the space station?
Do I look like I am?
Yes, you sound far away, Maria, but you're upstairs.
I am upstairs.
Yeah, you sound far away. Thank you, Maria. We appreciate your report.
My pleasure.
Okay, Angie, at this time, I'm going to ask if there's any public comment.
No public comment.
No public comment. Thank you, Angie. Then I think we're going to move on to our council member roundtable. Okay, so community racial equity update from Adama, Dr. Gallagher, Susan Bundy, Cornell Cruz, and Jermaine. Oh, hi, Jermaine. Are you on the call? Nice to see that. And Sandra Vesey Einhorn. Hi, Sandra. The floor is yours. Okay, we can't hear you. If you're on mute, you need to unmute. Who's leading that? Is it Adama?
So Adama is leading that. It looks like her internet has frozen.
Oh, excellent.
Oh, no.
Does that put you in the hot seat, Sue?
Sue, how about you, or do you want me to make some stuff up until she starts, or do you want to kick it off?
I'm happy to kick it off. We're also
Well,
waiting.
actually,
Go ahead.
You know, so I'll give a little context while we're waiting.
I'm back.
Ah, okay.
And go ahead, Cindy, we appreciate the context.
So as you know, this has been, and we've talked about this a bit throughout the meeting, the leadership role that CSC has played in partnership with the county on this issue for the last 5 years. And there have been some new activities in the community. We told you that back in, I think, April or May, whenever it was, I don't know, I'm lost in I can't tell time anymore. We had convened the CEOs to talk about and share how we can respond. And they're doing such amazing work. I wanted you to be able to hear it. And so you're going to get some context and background that for some of you will be a bit repetitive, but for some of our newer members, probably not. And then really take you to what's happening today. And I think you're going to be really excited by what you hear. It's just amazing work. And I have to commend, of course, our staff for the great work that they do. Sue and Adama and Keisha and Roxanne. Everybody has thrown themselves into this work. It's not just one person. You often tend to see Sue in this role, but you got to know how it just has permeated the organization. And so many people are bringing their brains to the table and sharing. Michelle Higgs, of course, has been training with Sue over the years. So anyway, I'm just really proud, and I hope you will be as well. I stalled long enough, Adama, for you?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, hit it.
So as Cindy mentioned, really it's a full organizational effort. There's not a department that is not touched by this work, but specifically related to the service goals. Through PAYOD, it's supported by Goal 1.1, and through the Research, Evaluation, and Planning department, it's supported by Goal 1.2. And Andrew, you can move forward.
So how did we really get into this deep dive work around racial equity? It really started in 2015. Sandra Bernard-Bastian and myself had the opportunity to attend the school district's Courageous Conversations workshop, which really opened our eyes to the possibility of how we could have a much more robust, informed conversation and portfolio of work around addressing racism in our community. And then interestingly, at the May budget retreat in May 2015, one of our council members really invited staff to say, look, we've been making significant investment in 33311 along with other funders. Is that investment making long-term sustained change? And if not, what's going on? And so we did an analysis, and we saw that CSC funded programs in those communities were achieving results, as evident in the budget books and the annual performance reports, and the communities have experienced historical and ongoing structural racism. And so we really needed to begin to understand what that racism was, how it showed up, and what is our role in it as the Children's Services Council. And very early on, Cindy and Kim Campbell from the county recognized their shared passion to address this, and we formed an early partnership to bring both of our organizations into this work. Next slide. And the importance of this work is both addressing historical and ongoing harm, things that inhibit people's focus, and also recognize that our demographics in our community have shifted significantly, where now you can see here on this slide, we've got 36% white, 28% Black, and 24% Hispanic. And so we have immense opportunity to innovate and create prosperity with our diverse community here in Broward. We also came to this work through understanding the data. And by disaggregating the data across many quality of life indicators for children and families, we could see how structural racism continues to produce results that are disparate for white, Black, and Hispanic or Latino community members. And so here is just a sample of the disparity in graduation rates. There's a 10% difference. In arrest rates, there is almost a 50% difference in arrest rates for Black youth. So really a crisis and how we need to address that through all points of the system, from prevention to intervention to ongoing rehabilitation and treatment. And then also how the poverty differentially affects our Black and white families in Broward. And how do we look not just for individual solutions, which is important, but also for some of the systemic solutions. Next slide. And so we were gifted with partnering with national trainers who began to give us a common language and a shared analysis around racism. I don't know about you, but in my lifetime, talking about race and racism has been a very difficult conversation. And garnering the tools about what is race, what is racism, what are the dynamics of racism internally, interpersonally, in our organization, has begun to give us fertile ground to actually address these issues in a collaborative fashion. And so to Kathy's point earlier, where she spoke about the importance of sending folks to groundwater, sending folks to the Racial Equity Institute, we can do this work when we have a common language and a shared analysis. Doesn't mean we're not going to have diverse perspectives, but at least we have a starting place that allows us to create the diversity of solutions that's going to be necessary to address racism in our community and beyond. Next slide. And so you can see this picture here of me with hair. But Michelle Higgs and I have co-created and co-presented the workshop on the local history of racism, understanding how our communities look the way they look today and how we are getting the results that we are getting today because of the historical racism and Jim Crow in our community. And we've shared this training with thousands of folks, both within the social sector, the government sector, the education sector, and partners have really resonated and sort of opened their eyes to be able to see, oh, okay, well that explains a lot of the dynamics going on. So we again have provided a foundation of training for us to really embark on this journey of addressing racism. Next slide.
So with that foundation set, we thought it was important to then move into the community now that the groundwork was leveled. So with the partners that we had in place, the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond and the Racial Equity Institute, we started to hold 2-day racial equity workshops, as well as 3 to 4 hour groundwater presentations. So to date, we have trained over 2,300 people in the 2-day workshop and 530 plus in the groundwater data-based analysis of racism. Next slide. So Sue highlighted a little bit how the partnership between CSC and Broward County Human Services Department started, and it was a group of, a small group of us kind of leveraging our collective power. But to date, you can see how powerful that impact has been. In 2017, when we started, the Urban League took the information that they got and were spurred to start the Child Welfare Equity Task Force. In 2018, the Department of Health, through the work of BPRE, joined us and started to look at health disparities within Broward County. In 2018 as well, we also started some affinity groups to help to just scaffold people along the work. We found that after the training, a lot of people just wanted to know what's next, wanted to continue the learning. So those 3 affinity groups were started. We have a People of Color Caucus, a White Caucus, a Latino or Latinx Caucus, and then we have a quarterly caucus that brings all 3 of those groups together, which is the Joint Caucus. And that collective actually has done some impressive work, including bringing down national authors from throughout the country to speak here in Broward specifically on issues relating to race. In addition, we also released this report on the state of girls in Broward. And right now, we've been able to quickly adapt the work to a virtual format. So we can go to the next slide. We wanted to highlight 2 youth-focused initiatives that have come out of the work. To date, and through a partnership with Broward County Public Schools, we have trained over 300 youth in youth-focused racial equity workshops, also conducted by the Racial Equity Institute. Through that training, the staff and leadership at Boyd Anderson High School created a special subgroup of their SGA that focuses specifically on racial equity. So we have youth, a collective of about 70 youth there that meet pretty regularly under the leadership of teacher Melissa Yazdemir and also Principal James Griffin, and continue the conversations and continue the learning. That group, along with some Brace advisors supported by the Bridge to Life committee, was invited to help co-create and facilitate the Local College Access Network 2020 conference. And that is a huge deal. So that brought together a lot of local leaders looking at post-secondary opportunities throughout Florida. And not only did these youth put this, give their opinions, they actually facilitated all of the conversations, down to the discussions and the interviews, sharing their thoughts, sharing the things that they had learned through the workshops and the way that they are working to make sure that those things are instilled in their school. So, secondly, we also have a new social justice advisory council that the Broward Bridge to Life group has started, and they had their inaugural meeting in October. Very well attended and just powerful conversation. I think Cindy was a part of that, and to hear just the dynamic, youth that spoke and how they really connected to this understanding and to the dynamics of racism and how it impacts them in their community was just amazing. And to know that we, as the council, in partnership with the county, is leading that effort. Also in 2018 and 2019, we led our first community participatory action research, leveraging the lived experience of youth and parents in the child welfare system to find out exactly how they felt the system could better serve them. So next slide. So again, we mentioned BPRE, so Broward Partners for Racial Equity, are funders and system leaders committed to identify, I'm missing part of the screen, to individual and organizational level change and addressing race-based inequity, co-creating equity building strategies, and mitigating disparate outcomes. To date, these are the anchor partners that we've engaged, and by anchor partners, we mean partners that are actually helping to fund trainings and workshops in our community. And in addition, we just want to note the power that this has provided us, and as Cindy mentioned, the position that has placed us in to be able to respond to a lot of the social unrest that happened after the untimely death of George Floyd. We can move on to the next slide. And as Cindy mentioned, from that, one of the most significant gains was the creation of the new CEOs for racial equity. It falls under the Broward Partners umbrella, but they've really done some amazing jobs. So I'm going to introduce Sandra Bezzi Ehorn now from the Nonprofit Executive Alliance of Broward to share her experience as one of those leaders.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Adama. CSC, thank you for having me. It's nice to see so many familiar faces and to be able to introduce myself to the new ones. As Adama mentioned, I am lucky to serve in two roles. I serve both as the Executive Director of the Coordinating Council of Broward, of which Cindy is our Vice Chair, and as the Executive Director of the Nonprofit Executive Alliance of Broward, which is a nonprofit CEO group with over 90 CEO members here in Broward County. I'll start with, back in 2016, I attended, it was then the People's Institute, the REI training, and from there on out, every time there was a training, the Nonprofit Executive Alliance of Broward was kind of passive-aggressively sending out the trainings to our members. We were bringing it up at meetings. We were encouraging folks that went through the training to give testimonials, to really try and encourage our nonprofit CEOs around the table to attend these trainings. Then last year in 2019, we had Sue Gallagher join us at our monthly CEO meeting to give the local history. I have seen Sue provide that training before. I thought it was really wonderful. I thought it was really insightful, and really had hoped perhaps that it would encourage CEOs that had not gone through the training yet to go through the training. I think at least once or twice a year, we would sort of ask by a show of hands who'd been through the training, and really was sort of disappointed to see that most of our CEOs had not gone through the training. Fast forward to 2020, and obviously as racial tensions really started to heighten across the US, I started noticing that a lot of our nonprofit CEOs were putting out messaging or making commitments. And so I'd asked Adama, I gave her a list of all of our members, and I asked who's gone through the training here in Broward County. You know, we see all these messages, but who's really putting their foot to the pedal and making the commitment to anti-racist work? And quite honestly, I was pretty disappointed to see that the majority of our CEOs have not been through the training. It was really CEOs of color that took up the bulk of those CEOs that had gone through the training. And it really was an opportunity for us to think, as nonprofit leaders, how can we do better? And so what we did this year was we had Suzanne Bundy and Corey Best come to speak to our nonprofits. Once again, it was a little bit different than the local history of racism here in Broward County. But in order to RSVP for that meeting, we asked very specific questions. Questions that included, what does being a racist mean to you? What type of work are you doing within your organization? And the responses that came back were across the board. And what I really saw was a disconnect between people understanding what racism means, what it means to be an anti-racist, what unconscious bias means, and what it means to, as a leader, make a commitment to better understand racial inequality and then institutionalize that within their organization. And so that sort of started all of these brainstorming sessions on what we can do. That led to one of many conversations with Cindy. At that time, Cindy had been reaching out to her CEOs and having a similar conversation. And out of that was really the birth of this new racial CEO, this new CEO group to address racial equity. What we wanted to do was twofold. We really wanted to bifurcate what it was that we were doing. And we really wanted leaders, again, to understand that there were two responsibilities. There was the responsibility of that CEO to wake up every day and better educate themselves as a leader, both personally and professionally, on what racism looks like in Broward County, on what racism looks like within their own organization and how they can educate themselves. And then again, what that then looks like, what that step two is to institutionalize the work within their organization. How do you work with your board? How do you work with volunteers? How do you garner the support within your employees at your organization? And so we really reached out. You could see these fantastic organizations here that had been doing the work for a number of years. And so how can we lean on them to help guide the way and help provide some of those tricks of the trade in order to be able to be efficient and effective? Before I turn it over to Cornell, I do want to mention that for us, it was really important from the get-go, and it's been top of mind to me since that point, that this was not just another to-do that gets added to a very long list of things to do for nonprofit CEOs, right? So it wasn't something where we wanted them to feel like there was going to be a checklist, and once the checklist had checked all the boxes, they were done. We didn't want them to feel like it was an additional burden. We didn't want them to feel like this was something where they were going to have to worry about getting funded or not finding funding for, but that we were going to be able to provide it in a very organic manner, something that felt like this was something that was part of the mission. This was something that was going to be integrated in a way that didn't come off as being very disingenuous, that did not come off as being something that was just topical for today, but something that when we move on to the next crisis is going to be ignored, that it was really going to be a pivot and sort of a wake-up call for all nonprofits to look at that work. Next slide, please. I am now going to turn it over to Cornell Cruz, one of the co-chairs of this new group, to take it from here. Thank you again.
Thank you, Sandra. Good morning, everyone. My name is Cornell Cruz, Jr. I am the Executive Director for the Community Reinvestment Alliance of South Florida. Our mission is to ensure that the financial institutions adhere to the Community Reinvestment Act of 1977. By law, the financial institutions are required to reinvest in the community, and the Community Reinvestment Act was designed primarily because of redlining, which has to do a lot with racial equity in our communities as concerning to housing and small business loans and so on. So first of all, I'd like to thank CSC as well as Sandra for inviting me to be a part of this very, very important committee. My reasons for being a part of this are it touches me deeply as far as racial equity is concerned and equality across the board, period, and just being civil to one another and treating each other with respect. I'm a firm believer that shouldn't have to be mandated, but unfortunately, these are the times that we live in. Another reason for wanting to be a part of this is I'm still fighting the same fights that my grandmother fought, and that bothers me. That here we are all these years later, and still some of the same issues that we still haven't that we had back in her day. So I volunteered to be a part of this group, and then as we had our first meeting, we talked. Sandra asked for some folks to step forward, and I was happy to step forward to help to be a part of leadership. And I think it's important that this group come together to try to help solve our issues. And I think because we have some shared experiences, and maybe more even importantly, some non-shared experiences. And I think that has to be in order to help solve the issue. We have to be able to listen to both sides and be able to understand each other. So as you can see up on the slide now, what we've done is we actually had some sessions, sometimes tense sessions, sometimes kind of prickly, but they were all necessary conversations that needed to be had. And we came up with some primary resources for integrating racial equality into organizational culture and practice. And these were some tools, not all the tools. This is not the do-all, end-all. This is not the end plan. I consider this a journey that's ongoing and a journey that you just keep on picking up things along the way, and you keep learning. So we put together some resources, some ideas, some suggestions on books to read, on videos to see, speakers to listen to, so that we can encourage the community to get more involved. Next slide. Again, you have some way best articles, videos, and documentaries that could be accessed as well as a racial equity pathway. And again, this is not the do-all, end-all, but some things that we came up with that can at least start folks on that journey to getting where we want to be. Next slide. And as you can see, we're going to have some pathways, and I'm going to pass this along to Jermaine. So Jermaine,
Thank you.
Our colleague Jermaine. Go ahead, Jermaine.
Thank you, Cornell. Good morning, everyone. So as the colleagues have shared earlier, the why behind it, their reasons, know many of you on the line, and my why was really simple. It was, this is the work the Urban League does every day. This is what we get up to figure out how to create pathways in a racially equitable way. However, in this time in 2020, I realized that it was important for the Urban League for me as a leader, for the Urban League as a board to be transparent about being more intentional around how we would incorporate many of these opportunities, whether it's from training to operationalizing racial equity, because I felt that if the Urban League would raise its hand and say that we have work to do, it made it more comfortable for other people to say that they have work to do too. So it is from that perspective that I chatted with Cindy, that I continue to chat with Cindy over time, as well as the others on the line. So as we got together as a team, recognizing the work that had already been put in by the Children's Services Council, by Broward County Human Services, and many others who are the backbone. So we have to try to figure out a way to give people a pathway to how do we get on board? What's our on-ramp? And this document that you see in front of you in draft was a way that we presented to the other not-for-profit CEOs. Because one of the comments that I made, which probably was the more popular comment, but one I think that was embraced, is that we as CEOs of not-for-profit organizations doing quote unquote the good work, we also have to be conscious that we may be perpetuating systems that are inequitable. And we have to take a look at what that looks like and how we can turn that around. So what you see on the screen in these four areas is a pathway, starting with ongoing education, initial and ongoing education, using it as an opportunity not only for ourselves as CEOs, but also for our staff and our board members. And the idea that we would use, and advisories, if one would have those, use this as an opportunity to create that common language that Sue spoke to. Because without that common language, without that shared analysis, as Suzanne often tells us, you're just going to be spinning your wheels, over and over again. So we need to be able to have that. I will tell you that in short order, the Urban League's board, close to 60% now, as of tomorrow, of the Urban League's board has gone through the groundwater training. Again, wanting to be an example of looking at ourselves first, as well as putting dollars towards staff training, and the like. The second is the operationalizing of racial equity. And in that bubble, you would see anti-racist assessment tools, a commitment to the disaggregation of data based on race. But again, giving people a clear strategy related to ways that they can operationalize racial equity within their organization. But from a not-for-profit CEO part, I have to tell you the most enlightening part and the greatest opportunity that we had in that bubble was the creation of a learning community where not-for-profit CEOs raised their hands and said, and recognized, we can't do this, we can do it alone, but we probably won't be as effective, we won't be as efficient, and we want to do it together. So out of some conversations that have been had, we are creating a learning community specifically for not-for-profit CEOs. There's some who might only want the primer and that's it, but there are others who want to be in a learning community. And then the third bubble there, the coalition building and with partners, is a clear recognition of collective impact, the opportunity for us to do this together and moving forward in a very direct way. And you have some examples there of coalitions that have already been formed. Mentioned already was the Racial Equity Child Welfare work group that the Urban League might have stood up, but we don't lead only. It is definitely a collective impact positioning that we have taken, and it is working. And last but certainly not least is policy systems and community change. This idea that as you're educated and you move to connect in a different way, you move to understanding, then you can act in a way based on that new understanding. And then, of course, moving ourselves over into the concept of collective impact and moreover policy change is ultimately what is going to take for us to truly have racially equitable systems, you know, in Broward County as a whole. Next slide. So with that said, there's some emerging best practices and principles that we have seen, such as using data to drive, you know, your process. A lot of us disaggregate data, but we may not be disaggregating data by race so that we can assess the impact of the respective dosage, program, service, whatever it might be, based on race. The incorporation of the lived experience, and this is something for all of us to really challenge ourselves around. We're creating programs, policies, systems, revamping them, but not talking to the individuals in which are the end users of that. So how do you really focus on a more human-centered design, not only in the beginning of the process, but in the middle, and definitely as you go through it at the end, and then making that a constant way of doing business. And that, of course, leads to sharing power. I was on a call the other day, and the person kept saying the word help. And I said, I don't really want your help. I really want you to share power. I want you to look at this from a perspective of we're going to share this space together, and we're going to recognize that both of us have something to bring to the table. Requiring agencies to complete race equity training, and again, the idea is shared language. Creating not only safe spaces, a lot of times we talk about safe spaces, but we need to have brave and bold spaces to be able to support the work. And that's where learning communities come in, and us doing it together and not feeling that you are, you know, on an island by yourself. And last but certainly not least, this idea of sharing power and compensating the co-creators. And let me be super clear, I'm not the co-creator. Cindy actually pays out our contracts really, really well. The co-creators in this that we're talking about are the community members that we often ask to come to the table. We need to figure out how we can compensate them for their time, their knowledge, and the value that they bring is as valuable as all of us sitting in these Hollywood Squares and Brady Bunch squares that we're looking at right now. So compensating them in a way to value their time, their talent, bringing to the table. So all of this, of course, is wrapped in the fact that the backbone of the support for this has been, you know, anchor entities like the Children's Services Council, like Broward County Human Services. We often talk about the not-for-profit executive alliance that's a part of this. And with that, I'd love to turn it over to my colleague over here, Suzanne Bundy from the county.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be here, and I appreciate the space to address you, and also want to acknowledge the support that CSC has since the beginning and in partnership. I will say anytime I get the chance that we can't do this work in a silo. And it has been most important to have in the beginning, you know, this partnership Human Services Department and CSC to really grow how it has, as you've been looking at the slide. One of them is more funding and sorry?
We're having a hard time hearing you. It's coming, it's rubbing up. Oh, the judge says lean forward, it might help.
While we're waiting for Suzanne to call in, I just want to say the partnership with the Human Services Department and the Office of Equity and Community has been terrific. One of the ways, as we started this work, the county is huge, and they have a lot of work to do within the county itself. And Suzanne and Tim's incredibly in-depth knowledge of this work, which they've been doing for so many years, has been invaluable. And CSC's role at the beginning was sort of reaching out into the nonprofit community, but it's that partnership that's really been very powerful in making it work. And I'm sure that's what Suzanne is going to say when we can hear her again. Suzanne, you want to try again? Are you calling?
Sound check.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Should I start from the top?
No, we heard you, it was just weird. So, I mean, start wherever it's comfortable for you to start.
Okay, if you didn't hear me say thank you, I want to say thank you to everyone here who has supported this work for the last 4.5 years and making this a priority for your agency and in partnership with Human Services and now the county government as a whole. So in what we're trying to do here at institutionalizing this work is, as you'll see on the screen and you probably already read, that we have an Office of Equity and Community Investment that was born last May. And in that, it has allowed us to augment the dismantling racism work across the sections of Human Services and also county. And we were able to also move our funding to a place where we can offer groundwater to different cities and municipalities across. I'm hearing myself twice, sorry, so it's confusing. We've also in June had the opportunity to bring groundwater to the commissioners and look to expand this work in different ways that we haven't been able to yet. So in that, this office has now centralized all of the funding for the Human Services Department. We have grants and we have procurement here. We also have a university student practicum program. And so we have a really amazing opportunity to embed racial equity in each of these places in the department. And as we move forward, it has become actually a requirement in 2 other departments to go through the 2-day workshop. So I'm very proud of that. And we continue to reach out and engage unique partnerships. So can I have the next slide, please? So as you see here, and as has been spoken about for the last few minutes, we've got some really promising new relationships across the county, and especially in philanthropy and in funders. We've been, a bunch of us on the call and who you've heard from have been working on those relationships for the last several months, specifically since May. And we continue to work on the Broward Sheriff's Office situation. It has not been finalized yet. The other couple things I want to talk about under government is that under Mayor Holness, who is now the immediate past mayor, he proposed both the Racial Equity Task Force and the Police and Criminal Justice Review Board. And both those things are coming up for public comment in December. Cindy, thank you for your support on the Racial Equity Task Force on the last commission meeting. And we're going to be looking for ways to better engage community. That has been something that I've been asking for edits on. It keeps getting presented in new iterations, but I feel that with some community support and with some support from folks on the call, we can move the body of the board to have community members as part of them. So I'm hoping that you could pay attention to when those public comments come up, that we can say, you know, we can't do this work as professionals without people who have lived experience, and we all need to have an analysis. So part of that is to bring this analysis not just to the 2 boards that will be coming under this office, but also to community members and members who I would prefer to have on these bodies, to be able to bring the voice of the actual community to these boards. We do continue to recruit, and I will be speaking with the cities in January for some more opportunities to bring them in. And at this point, we're going to be working with the city of Coral Springs, and I have an appointment with commission from Fort Lauderdale as well. So thank you again.
So I just want to really commend our partners. You know, I talked about how this has spread through, how it permeates the CSC, but we could never do this work without all of the partners that you just heard from. They are amazing, and it's just so rewarding to see how it's building out in the community. And the business community, Kathy, I want you to know, is stepping up. The Broward Alliance has now added a pillar for under the 6 pillars. Now it's going to be 10 pillars, and they've asked you to co-chair that pillar about racial equity. The Fort Lauderdale Chamber, they wanted to get involved in this work, reached out to the Community Foundation, and then they were pointed in the direction of connecting with the Broward Partners for Equity. So it's that ripple effect that's moving out, and that's just so exciting to see. And as Cornell talked about the primer, which of course, as he said quite eloquently, it's not the be-all and end-all, but there are a lot of different ways to get into the work. One of the things that I think is important, and as you all go out and speak to your colleagues, is that different aspects will grab different people. So for some, it will be the housing disparities that they go, wow, all of these laws that I never knew about really kept people from building the wealth. That, it seems, really speaks to the business people. So the color of law has had a lot of impact on business people. For others, it's the social services, and for the education aspect, the seeing the charrettes in North Carolina, The Best of Enemies movie was incredible around, you know, how a Ku Klux Klan head and a community activist could actually find common ground and work forward for their children. We have to have that multiplicity of opportunity to grab people wherever they are and then hook them into then taking part in the groundwater and the REI, so that then we can have that common language to move forward. And I personally am excited that Suzanne, you know, that the 2 commissions are falling under Suzanne's department, because I know that she and Kim will push for people actually doing the analysis before they sit at the table. It's the only way it will be successful. So Suzanne, I commit to you that I will do another public comment and continue to support you as you ask for that. But that's enough from us. If you want
Anybody
any
want to
questions.
speak? Well, I just want to say, I thought that was outstanding, and I want to say to the team that put this together, I'm going to ask for a copy, because to your point of sharing, the amount of work that you've done to put this presentation together and what we can take from it and share in our own businesses and with our community is very valuable. I also have a question. Have we considered, because I did the groundwater training virtually a couple months ago, and I thought it was outstanding. Could we not take that so that it's accessible, and then, you know, people could watch it on their own time, etc.?
So Kathy, we the information is actually owned by the Racial Equity Institute. We do have a great relationship with them. Although post the social unrest that's happened, the uptick in, you know, the demand for their services is high, but because we've been working with them for so long, they really prioritize our requests. So we have upped the number that we will have for this year, but right now I don't think they are allowing for those. We can't record any of the sessions, the presentations, or the 2 days.
Unfortunate. That's not good sharing, but no, I understand they're a business and they're trying to make some money. But anyway, that would be maybe something in the future we could work towards, because it was really great training.
Might have to make our own.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Sue, are you listening? Okay. Anybody else?
Perhaps we can arrange something where we can pay them, you know, some amount to be able to record it. We'll pursue that with them.
Yeah.
Can we have a copy of the syllabus of all the resources sent to us?
Yeah, if we can get this presentation, that was really helpful. Okay, any other questions? Anybody on Zoom that wants to ask anything? Then I would like to say thank you to everybody for your time and your attention, and everybody on the call, the presentation. You just did a beautiful job. That was very insightful, very helpful, and we appreciate you all. Thank you. Okay, this meeting is officially adjourned. Oh, yes, Judge, please, before we officially adjourn.
I wanted to officially welcome Donald Corn to the board. I deliberately waited until I got to the Chamber of the Commission to officially welcome her. So welcome aboard, Donald Corn. And Jermaine, it's good to see your face.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge. Very exciting is the 20th anniversary of the Children's Services Council, and we haven't really had an opportunity to celebrate it this year